Digital Media Board asks that I start the meeting. While she's tending to another matter, she will join us shortly. Good morning. I'm Jason Mosick. I'm the Vice Chair of the Toronto Film, Television, Digital Media Board. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I'd like to call meeting 5 of the Film, Television, and Digital Media Board to order. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming. And I ask you to please bear with me as I fumble my way through this. Full disclosure. This meeting is being held with board members and staff participating by video conference and in person at City Hall in Committee Room 1. Members of the public may also attend in person or observe the meeting on YouTube. I ask everyone for their patience today with any delays and technical issues that we may incur. A few reminders. Members and staff, please keep your microphones muted unless you need to answer a question or speak. Members, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand or unmute your mic and let me know. I'd also remind members, excuse me, that if you have any motions on the agenda, items must be submitted in writing and can be emailed to the board secretary at, do we have the, do you want, ftbdmb@toronto.ca. Although we're in different locations and meeting remotely today, the board would like to acknowledge that the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by the Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. And with that, may I have a motion to confirm the minutes of the Film and Television Digital Media Board held on July 5th? Thank you, Councillor. Welcome. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Sorry, too fast for it. Carried. Thank you. We have 5 items on our agenda today, and we will consider the items listed on the agenda, which I think everybody was provided and emailed in advance. The first item on today's agenda, FB 5.1, will be an update from the Infrastructure and Sustainability Working Group. Members Magali Samard, Chair of the Infrastructure and Sustainability Working Group, will provide an update on the group's most recent meetings. And with that, I turn it over to you, Magali.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, so infrastructure sustainability, I want to share the notes of our September 16th subcommittee latest discussion. It pertained to East Harbor, the McCleary District, and our first real full meeting after that on sustainability to establish priorities for this group, for this board, and how we want to help guide the city achieve some of the action items in there. So on East Harbor, you'll remember we had a presentation a couple board meetings ago, and then we met with City Planning and Transpo as a subgroup following the approved master plan that went to City Council in June. The main piece here to reiterate is the application by the developer, in this case it's Cadillac Fairview, to change the ratio of residential to employment and other uses given the decline of the need for office towers. So I think it is understood by everyone that that ratio has to change given the new reality of our work terms. And in these term negotiations that are going, by the way, to City Council in February 2025, our request from the subgroup and through this board is for the city to ensure the protection of existing film infrastructure on East Harbor lands. Sorry, I'm a bit lost here. Commit to the protection of employment lands and include the film-friendly features that we've talked about for many years, and I'm not going to go through them today, in what are called the design terms that are kind of imposed in some capacity on the developer. And additionally, the healthy inclusion of housing and affordable housing specifically that sectors like ours necessitate. That's it for the update on East Harbor. I don't know if there's any additional notes from my colleagues here or good. On to McCleary District, which is just southeast of East Harbor, so we're still in the southeast end of the city. In this case, specific to the PIC core, so a quick reminder that PIC is the Production, Interactive, and Creative core. It encompasses a lot of industries, not just ours. But it's basically to go a bit less industrial in certain areas and promote sort of the creative industries and ancillary industries to sort of operate on in those areas. So in the specific PIC core, the definition applications to this site is what we discussed. By the way, 60% of the district there is city-owned, so that's kind of why we're kind of so involved in this. There are currently 4 private applications for developments being reviewed by the city. PIC requirements are being assessed whether they are basically a percentage of each parcel on that site at 25%, or whether they should or can be a cluster of the East Harbor at large. So if you can picture, say, 11 parcels, each of them should have 25% of those dedicated to PIC core industries and applications, or utilizations rather, or should East Harbor at large have 25% of its total, regardless of where it sits geographically, as PIC core. We don't have a sort of a direction or such a strong opinion on that piece, but more so that if it's going to be clustered in one area or certain areas of McCleary, sorry, that it should be along commissioners, given our PIC core uses as usual lower heights, so not residential along commissioners as much as possible. So that was our main note on this one. Again, if anybody else, a lot of you were in that. If not, I'll move on to sustainability, and absolutely happy to throw to my colleagues who are very involved in this. So we had 2 points to cover, and this is obviously a large topic that many groups are tackling. It takes many people to get sustainability going and really established in so many ways. We had 2 particular points of conversation here, one being circularity. In this case, we narrowed down on the viability of an existence or lack thereof of set storage in the region. And next up will be food sharing, but we didn't get there yet. We want to be very conscious that Ontario Green Screen is the main entity that many of us, in fact, I think nearly all of us here, contribute to and turn to for strategy around sustainability for Film and TV. So here, as we see it anyway, the work at hand is really to see what this board can help the city specifically achieve and contribute to on those topics. So for set storage, options do exist already. They should be better communicated. There's so many of us that are client-facing and are not necessarily aware of these offerings. So the Film Office is planning to coordinate with OGS and Ontario Green Screen and Ontario Creates to map and list these. It's something we should probably put forward to clients a bit more than we have in the past. Now, the idea that has been going around for years now of kind of a new standalone material reuse facility, that exists in some jurisdictions. It's a tough business premise. It's often attached to other existing businesses like studios, like prop houses. It requires management, a large site. It's quite an endeavor to take on. We had a few entities that seemed somewhat interested in being a partner or a player in creating something like this. But we don't have a lead, and that, I think, was a bit of a crux for all of us. It's a good discussion to have. It's a great infrastructure to have if you can get it done, but it does need the proponent to really want to take this forward. So right now, it does not appear that there's a clear sort of like taker on this. There's a few players, again, as I mentioned, that do offer certain versions of set storage or set recycling, and I guess the city and everyone's kind of narrowing down on them to see what help they could use from the city, whether it's space, whether it's help finding partners or funding in some ways. And the second sustainability piece is power access. So as you'll remember, power drops were a huge accomplishment from the city and the Film Office to get it done at 2 major sites. Now we're trying to help the Film Office in some ways identify efforts to encourage greater use of those. They are pricey pieces of infrastructure. They are rare in film jurisdictions, so it's a true market advantage. It's a cool thing to have. It's the right thing to have. And if utilization can go up, all the better. I didn't know, but they actually painted, gorgeously painted, or graffiti, I'm not sure what do we say these days? What do cool people say?
Graffiti
Wrapped.
is cooler than, wrapped is true. Graffiti's cooler. I don't know.
Yes, the film office tagged.
Yeah,
literally.
we tagged it.
So look at the photo, it looks amazing. Did not know this was the look of our power drops now, so don't you want to plug right in? I mean, yes, it looks fantastic. It looks great. So on how to make sure people, and a reminder that they're located at Ash Bridges Bay, or sort of like adjacent to the beach in the parking lot, and at Gazowski Park in Etobicoke. So two big potential base camps or existing base camps and filming locations. So I don't want to take the notes of the film office themselves, but they have agreed that I should read these. But the points that we all kind of brainstormed and put forward, and some of these, the city, the film office through Bobby are really tackling this already, is to help increase utilization. It's useful to show the fuel saving calculation of this, like to calculate how much fuel is saved every time, so that there's kind of a really data proof of why you should plug in. Right now, if anyone shoots or parks really at those two locations, it's mandatory that they use it, which is great. And I think the mandatoriness of using these pieces is very key. And we started kind of wondering, well, the city squares have power drops. Basically, they have power access. All city squares do for major events, or in our cases, filming. And perhaps there's a day where it is absolutely mandatory, regardless of how much more work it is for a production to plug in. So something that the city's looking into. And educate really the production people as much as is possible. There are a lot of power access education going on. The unions are doing some, OGS is doing some. And it was kind of narrowed down really through, I'll give it to John Rakic to say, like, it's also really the gaffers, they're rigging electrics, who do need to be more familiar with this, where they are, what's the radius of utilization if you shoot in the East End or in Etobicoke, like how far can you go to use these? So I'll let the film office maybe talk about this more, or come back with sort of achievements or whatever at the next board meeting. That's it.
Thank you, Megali. Does anyone have any questions or comments with respect to Magali's report? Sorry, I forgot about the online folks. Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve Magali? Sorry, did you have a question? Oh, sorry, I apologize. Motion to approve then, thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? So carried. Thank you, Megali. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, 5.2, and an update on the Workforce Development Working Group. Angela Mastronardi is the chair of that group and will provide us an update on the recent activity. Is Angela? Oh, Angela's online, yes.
Hi, Jason, I'm online, yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Good morning, everyone. So the Workforce Development Subcommittee met, our last meeting was on October 25th, and we had discussions, obviously, on the film and television industry, which has been going through a contraction over the past year. And as the repercussions of 2023 manifested in a downturn in production, with unions and guilds seeing a downturn in workdays and in wages for their existing membership. This has resulted in individuals leaving the industry, which has shifted the focus of all unions and guilds from workforce development to workforce retention. As the industry redefines its long-term objectives, it was determined that we need to focus on upskilling and reskilling, developing leadership skills for people already in the industry, updating training with, in particular, technologies. The subcommittee supports the idea of taking existing film and television workers, giving them skills to take into adjacent industries such as gaming or augmented and virtual reality in order to withstand the ebbs and flows of the film industry, such as POV's Film's 3D real-time placement, which is in partnership with Seneca College. And they've actually, Seneca College has brought them on as an official community partner, which allows the graduates and alum from POV to access Seneca's studios, labs, scholarships, and bursaries. And POV is now focusing on Sheridan College to hopefully create a similar relationship. The 3D real-time placement originally started with 20 spots, but received 140 applications, so they did up that number to 60 spots. We also discussed the possibility of synergizing recruitment efforts of colleges and universities with the XOTO school program, as well as micro-credentials continue to be a focal point. POV is testing out stackable micro-credentials with Seneca College, which would outline competencies over several courses leading to micro-credential. An important factor would be to have union involvement in order to add extra layers of credibility to those courses, and having the potential also to formalize and introduce industry-wide standards for micro-credentials across the sector. A successful example is the DGC's vetting of the production accounting program developed through York University in partnership with Synacares. And this non-degree form of film skill education is accessible to anyone and not just to those already in the education system. Subcommittee also recommends continuing with XOTO schools with a focus on the future, while allowing the industry time to restabilize. Based on the success of the Transfilm Mentorship and the C programs, the continuation of supporting smaller cohorts like Women in Post, WIFT, and the Synacares production accounting programs would be more in line with what the industry can currently withstand. And that concludes my report. Anyone have anything that they want to add from our committee?
Sure, go ahead, please. Councilor.
Yes, I just have a question, Angela. I must have missed this. Is the course at York, has it begun or is it being promoted to begin?
I believe they have a pilot program, but is Ken or Magali might be able to speak more on this.
This is the production accountant.
Yes, we just went through this year's cohort. So it was one last year and one this year. Gangbusters, amazing. 20
Oh,
people.
okay. So it was fully enrolled. It doesn't need promotion. So
It will need it again for the next round, which is likely to be in the spring, but it certainly can use the promotion, yes, every time. And I think it's humbly saying, I think it's definitely a point of pride. It's a production accounting has been such a mouthpiece in terms of labor gas for so many years that it's, and we can tell our LA clients and friends have noticed this, and in fact, might want to bring it down there as curriculum.
okay. I would love the material to be able to push it out there.
Yeah,
Absolutely, Councillor. And the city does financially support, is a partner in that program.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I'll follow it up with Marguerite then, yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for Angela?
Not sure how to raise my hand here.
Sorry.
Can you hear me?
Sorry, thank you. Sorry, Joan, go ahead, please.
Is it possible to get a list of those programs? The report goes by very quickly. I'd just like to get a visual on what they are.
Sure, is that, go ahead.
Yes, sure, Joan, no problem. And Jessica on my team is also currently speaking to someone on your team whose name I have forgotten about
Hoda.
potential collaborations with the BSO, just so you're aware.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you for that. Any other questions? Comments? Can I get a motion to accept Angela's report on the Workforce Development Working Group?
Sure. So move. Motion to receive.
Thank you. All in favor? Any opposed? So moved, thank you. Next, oh, I have to do this now? Sorry, I was just handed another thing. So apparently what I need to do now is, I'm wondering if somebody can make a motion to add new business to our agenda. I guess would be 5.6? 5.6 on our agenda. Cynthia, would you like to make that motion?
So what is the item?
Just put it on the screen there.
Oh, okay.
It's the schedule for the 2025 meetings of this board. Sorry? Yeah. All right, so all in favor of adding, Cynthia's made the motion, all in favor of adding new business to the agenda as 5.6? Any abstain? So moved? Thank you. Sorry, I apologize. Told you I was going to fumble my way through this. Moving on with our agenda, agenda item 5.3, which is an update from the VFX Post-Production and Animation Working Group. And with that, I will throw it over to Krista, who's the chair of that group, to provide an update on their activities to date. Krista?
Thanks, Jason. Good morning, everyone. I'm online, so I hope this is coming through. Our group met, we actually had 2 meetings, one in June on the 25th, and more recently in October on the 16th. Our conversation centered around sort of 2 main areas, marketing and workforce development. Going through sort of the #1 priority for the group, marketing was sort of the key focus that the industry would like to focus on as we recover and bounce back post-strikes. Some of the recommendations were developing a database. We discussed working with the City of Toronto, Ontario Creates, to develop an industry database representing post and visual effects talent. Film has a really great website that we've used as reference, and I believe this is already in progress. The city's already on top of this. Second point, market exposure and strategy. We felt that there was an opportunity to increase marketing and branding of post animation, visual effects, and virtual production. Through that, we wanted to focus on unique selling points and form messaging, communications, and a PR plan. Some of the details we wanted to approach are looking at global competitiveness of tax credits for positioning, market stacked incentives, reference the UK, Australia approach. So talk about how that in Ontario, there's benefits. Possibly looking at a made in Ontario, made in Toronto brand consideration. Remote offerings, continuing to sort of push that. Remote posts, you don't necessarily need to shoot in the province, in the city, in order to bring work to visual effects and post. Focus on production flexibility, tentpole to indie, domestic to international service. The fact that we can kind of plug and play in a number of different size productions, we see as a true advantage to market. Celebrate the indie darlings. We wanted to find sort of those smaller stories and get them out there and really market the advantages, which speaks to our flexibility. Also focusing on AI, future-driven tool sets and workflows. There's an advantage there. And then perhaps look at feature case studies based on productions. We also discuss more overt marketing. So advertising, advertorial, focused trade magazines such as Visual Effects Voice, Post Magazine, Animation Magazine, and leveraging social media. We wanted to continue to work on identifying areas needing additional focus. For instance, animation, AR, and VR. And then also discuss an incoming mission, perhaps focused on animation or other emerging markets for revenue opportunities. For instance, Europe, India, or the Arab Emirates. Does anyone from the group have anything else to add in terms of marketing? I know there's a few of us that are on here. Okay, then I'll jump into workforce development. So for workforce development, we identified skills gaps, barriers to entry, and action items to prepare for the next 5 years. We identified barriers to entry. One in particular was post-production is CapEx intensive. So it was suggested perhaps that we explore cloud computing partnerships. Looking at gaps, open roles needing attention. Some of the roles would be on-set supervisors and data acquisition, data wranglers. I know that IATSE's heavily involved in that, but perhaps working a little bit more closely between industry and IATSE to help develop those particular skill sets. Merging IT world with production. So storage, render farm management are big aspects for the industry. Video engineer programs, computer science, system architects, and cloud system architects. So those were the gaps that we have identified so far. It's suggested that we work with educational institutions to identify skills gaps and future programming graduate opportunities. This can focus on industry advisory committees, FAM tours for educational leaders with local stakeholders, and also potentially surveying stakeholders to identify additional skills gaps in future programming. And then training. The city's doing a great job in this area. So we were discussing looking at leveraging and supporting partnerships, perhaps through bursaries. We discussed XOTO schools and how successful that's been. We talked about the Academy of Canadian Cinema and Television Women in Post program, that there could be opportunities there. The Black Film Office, the Visual Effects Society, and also identified working closely with unions and guilds to upskill. And that's the report coming from Post Animation, Visual Effects, and Virtual Production. Any questions? Thank you.
I have a million questions, Krista.
Okay, well,
So
we don't have all that time.
and the reason I have them is when you went through the length and breadth of what is really needed, the gaps in technology, I think it really does need marketing. I can recall I had this conversation with my granddaughter had friends over. They're all studying tech at York, at Seneca, whatever, and system design, coding, and the whole 9 yards. And I said, do you guys know that you're not necessarily going to have to end up working in an office tower? There's huge room for this in the film business, and that's a pipeline of jobs in Toronto. And they just all looked at me like, "Oh, Grandma, we don't want to make games," and I don't think they realized all the way back to the system architecture, the amount of work that is going on in this area. And I don't know that it is being discussed as fully as it needs to be in the post-secondary institutions that they're in. Because there's so much need across so many fields that there is a sort of focus on the amount of job growth in conventional corporations as opposed to creative corporations. We're kind of competing with their need. Yeah.
That's correct. No, it's a really great point, and an area that the subcommittee did say needs some work. The schools do have close relationships with some of the key stakeholders, but definitely looking at those specialist positions and identifying, as you say, the tech positions that are available in our industry is important. So yes, definitely we have to focus on that with the institutions.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay. We should talk offline. Yeah.
Absolutely, we'll do that. And I'll, a million questions, we're ready for it. Thank you.
I think too, even before post-secondary and whatnot, I think it would be an excellent opportunity. I know XOTO schools did some placements and whatnot and made some strides in you know, the post and VFX world this year as part of the program, but maybe an area to highlight as somewhere where, you know, maybe some more focus is also needed, you know, next year and in the years coming and whatnot through that program as well, to start hitting I shouldn't say hitting, sorry, start introducing kids in high school with the notion of doing those types of jobs in the industry as well, as you say, Counselor.
Yeah, and then it goes all the way.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jason. You know, we do have a placement at Rocket Science right now through XOTO schools, and she's doing fantastic. So there's definitely benefits to hitting the high school students, as you say, or not hitting, focusing on the high school students and showing them that there is careers available.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Krista. Are there any more comments or questions with respect to Krista's report? Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept Krista's report? Jane, oh, sorry, I keep forgetting the screen. Thank you, Jane. Any, all in favor, sorry? Anyone opposed? So moved, thank you. Moving on to item 4 on our agenda is an update from the Marketing Communications Working Group. It's been a busy couple of months since our last meeting, lots of working group meetings. With that, I'll throw it to Alma to provide an update on that working group.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. The working group met on October 16. As a group, we continued conversations from the last meeting we had in the summer around communications and marketing efforts to current market realities. Well, generally, industry consensus is that marketing and promotion requires attention, as Krista also touched on the animation and VFX update. We want to first sort of take a step back and sort of consider what's happening in other key markets in terms of production. Commissions coming out of Los Angeles are down by 37%, but business here isn't down by the same percentage. Toronto is currently outpacing Vancouver in terms of production activities, and Winnipeg had a successful summer, largely due to its attractive tax credits. And the feedback sort of based on our conversations that all of us are getting from different people we talk to, and this is a very more of an informal feedback from LA, suggests that spending fears and congestion are a major consideration for production. So we really need to highlight the incentives that can break through these fears, especially around spending. For instance, tax credits on hotel expenses could be highly effective in encouraging productions to consider Toronto as a viable location and use such features to promote Toronto as a filming location to productions. One area we discuss in depth is marketing to Canadian producers and co-productions. By striking our appeal, we could encourage more productions to come here and, more importantly, keep returning. These Canadian producers who work on both domestic and international productions can be ambassadors in rooms where decisions are being made about filming locations. We also recommended implementing a formal survey for producers who filmed here. We want to understand why they choose Toronto, what factors are most important to them, and how we can improve Toronto's appeal, especially to the decision makers, and based sort of the marketing efforts from hearing directly from those producers. We continue the conversations from the meeting regarding newsletter and around the current use of social media, partnerships, and strategic events to better showcase Toronto and its strengths. In terms of social media, we should highlight what's filmed here. Leveraging social content from our partners could give us an edge in showcasing our region's appeal and increasing visibility. And as Krista also mentioned, like championing productions that happen in Toronto, especially when they are being showcased on the global stage at festivals and other events around the world. Lastly, we need to consider strategic events. We would benefit from engaging consulates or creating joint initiatives with organizations during certain festivals. Those connections can be instrumental in bringing new opportunities in Toronto. That's the update from the working group. Unless anyone else from the group would like to add something, I'll hand it over.
Thank you for that. Any comments or questions? I suspect that report will also dovetail nicely to the staff report that is coming up as well. Cynthia, sorry, go ahead. I saw your hand.
Just a question of clarity on the survey. Are you talking about an exit survey or like a survey to potential new stakeholders?
Marguerite, you may also want to jump in here, but it's more like an exit survey in sort of what worked, what didn't work, and what are the things that can be improved. Sort of because I think those conversations are a bit more informal now rather than having something that is a bit more formal. But Marguerite, please add if I've misunderstood that.
Will do, Alma, and thank you very much for that. So what's intended is a personal conversation with producers of significant shows, because, I mean, there are, on a good year, which this, well, anyway, on a good year, there are over 1,400 productions in Toronto every year. We're obviously not going to make one-to-one contact with every producer, but on significant productions, there will be one-to-one conversations between me and the producer at the end of the shoot to say, what did you like? What works for you? What can do better? Are you sure you're coming back next year? What can we do? You know, whatever, that kind of thing. So that's really what it will be. So it's a more personal touch, yeah. But to Alma's point about survey, consistent questions, so I can gather consistent data.
Thank you for that. Sorry, was there any other questions or comments? With that, can I get a motion to receive the marketing working group's report? Paula, thank you. All in favor? Against? Opposed? Sorry. So moved. Moving on to 5.5 and staff updates. Marguerite, I'll turn it over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I will start off with updates related to infrastructure. So with regard to Basin Street and the Pinewood area, we've been working internally at the city with transportation, with planning, with the Waterfront Secretariat to look at approach to doing the work on the roadways and the streetscape that need to be done to enable the basin build and to get rid of the ponding near Pinewood. I'm sure you'll miss it. So that work is proceeding. With regard to East Harbor, internally, we're contributing to staff considerations and negotiations to ensure the continued film studio presence, as Magali mentioned. Also on McCleary, we're working with staff to ensure the PIC percentage is acceptable relative to what we discussed with the Infrastructure and Sustainability Working Group. Because as Magali mentioned, with the towers increasing in density, the 25% benchmark no longer holds as sensible. A study was done, a range was identified, questioned and identified, and the high range, the high part of that range is something that we're comfortable with. So that is going forward internally with planning. So they're carrying that forward with our help. We've also been exploring city space for set storage, but you know, as Magali indicated, our work will be supporting companies that are currently in that space rather than competing against them for the time being until the business model is solid and the need is demonstrated for further intervention. And then with regard to, as you all know, the Film Board a number of years ago produced a film strategy, spotlight, and action plan for film in Toronto. We will be, 2018 to 2022. We are refreshing that strategy now. So a group of film board and non-film board industry people has been assembled and reviewed our approach to the RFQ in terms of the content. It's now out for tender, and we'll be hiring a consultant very soon on that and moving that forward. The culture plan and the economic action plan, both of which reference creative industries, are through ECDC now and are going to council this month. And also, we have been understaffed in the film office for months since Colin Joseph made the deeply unwise decision to leave us for event support. He is still missed. But that job call is now closed, and we'll start interviews, and we will finally have someone in that role in the new year, which we're very much looking forward to. Other outreach, many people here will recall that we did XOTO House at TIFF. So we had, yet again, record attendance and an absolutely booming event that, with the mayor's support and Councillor Carroll's support, Councillor Fletcher's support, and you know, that's the kind of event that at TIFF, in front of a global industry audience, really trumpets Toronto's brand with enormous pride and dynamism. It's very important for that. It is one of the things that we do that helps draw production here. And we know the industry is suffering right now. We know we're going through a tough time. I'm concerned about that with regard to XOTO House for next year, because sponsorship will be even more of a challenge next year than it has been the last two. So I'm just flagging that now. With regard to workforce development, Jessica can't be with us here today. She has a family emergency. Anyway, so she sent me her workforce development notes. So in terms of workforce, we supported a cohort of participants in C's E-Trades program and POV's PA program, both Indigenous and Black-focused cohorts, and an upcoming 3D real-time training program where 60 participants, 60, will be receiving an intro in real-time technology, which is the technology that we're all talking about when we talk about cross-purposing training across video games, immersive, VR, virtual production, XR, all the rest of it. We're doing that training now by training in real time, 60 people. So we're very excited about that work. As well, we also supported Film 101 with the Shine Network Institute, which of course is a program targeting Indigenous participants, particularly Indigenous women. We also supported the Transmedia Mentorship Program on the program Tall Pines this year in conjunction with IATSE 873 and 667. That was very successful. They've completed the on-set portion of the training program, and they've moved on to the career training portion. This is the third year that we've been able to support this program. We're very proud to support it. XOTO Schools, which many people have spoken about today, partnered with NABET 700, thank you, Jason, and we're hoping together to add the Toronto Catholic District School Board into the mix of this already very successful program. And this program, we're currently discussing this program specifically with regard to specialized access to 12 targeted schools, which is less of a workforce development issue. The highlight of the program is the revival of the co-op portion, which is run by the wonderful Anya Vagabova, who has been highly successful in placing 17 students in all areas of the industry, and we're very proud of that. And we're also supporting the Academy's Women in Post program. Thank you, Jane Tattersall, for your leadership on that, as well as WIFT's production accounting program, which are both in market right now. And that concludes my staff presentation.
Sorry, just a question with respect to the XOTO, the 12 schools you mentioned, is that with the Catholic District School Board, or is that across?
No, that's the TDSB, yeah.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve Marguerite's report?
I think there's a question from Joan.
Sorry, go ahead, Joan. You're muted, Joan.
Marguerite, you've listed a lot of different programs, and I'm just wondering, how do we get access to what's going on, like what that list is? Is there a central source of that information of what you have done, what you are doing, what you plan to do, so we can just get a holistic picture?
Yeah, we can absolutely provide a list. No problem, Joan.
Okay. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you. With that, we can move on to our new item that we added under, oh, sorry, I thought we did that, sorry. We had a motion, didn't we? Magali, had a motion to receive that report. All in favor? All opposed? So moved? All right. Now moving on to 5.6, which is our new agenda item that we added, which is an information item. These are the meetings that have been scheduled for 2025. Is it able to put it up on the screen? Sorry. Thank you. So this is the meeting schedule for our 4 meetings in 2025.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead, Joe.
I have a question. Is it possible to not schedule a meeting during TIFF?
Sir. September 15th, Monday, September 15th, you're right. That would be during TIFF.
We'll have a really big one.
Is that the Monday after? I haven't looked at it. I haven't looked at a calendar yet for next year.
It's the Monday.
Thank you, Joan. How do we, is there an alternate date that we can, or do we want to defer this then, or that meeting?
It's actually not during TIFF, it's TIFF hangover day.
Let the minute show.
Yeah.
Also, May 20th is Cher's birthday, so we can't.
Well, Magali won't be here that day. So assuming then, or as has been pointed out, thank you, that I guess the 15th is post-TIFF. Can I get a motion to accept this schedule for 2025? Paula, thank you. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Seeing none, so moved. Thank you. And then lastly, can I please have someone put forward a motion to excuse the absences of the members not in attendance today? It's there up on the screen now.
I'll move.
Thank you, John. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So moved. And thank you, folks. I think that concludes our business for today, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming and participating, and we'll see you at our next meeting, February 6th. Thank you, and I apologize. Thank you for fumbling your way through this with me.
Good job, Jason.
Great job, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.